Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Let's look at the budget. It's about the only place we could go today because it's that important. It's been 6 months in the making, but we have something of, we have an approval. And to help us look at it and understand it, we've got Mr. Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Cowrie Assets Management Limited. He's an economist and financial analyst. Thank you, as always, for coming on the program.
The pleasure is mine.
Indeed. And Fred Oke-Nzeako, he's a lawyer, he's a development economist, and he shall be adding his own criticism to how economies will be developing if we're taking 6 months to come up with a budget. Thanks for coming on, Fred.
Many thanks, Yori. Thank you so much.
Okay. Let me try and get the 4 pegs of the tent, down in the ground. So I'm coming over to you, Johnson. 9.12 trillion is what the National Assembly has now laid on the table. And this is up from, these figures are mind-boggling. This is 8.6, actually 8.612, 8.6 billion budget that was sent by the National Assembly. So they've...
Trillion.
Trillion. In fact, thank God for those words, trillion, because the thing's running to what? 13 figures, that kind of a thing. That they have put this much money on top, that comes to more than, they've increased it by more than 10%. Tell me the implications of this, Johnson, because it must have been meticulously done. Now they've taken 6 months, now they've come up with a figure that is 500 over what was asked for. Give me your thoughts on this whole matter.
Okay, we have to look at where we're coming from and the assumption that underpinned the decision of the National Assembly to increase the budget. There are 3 core assumptions that you have to look at that drive Nigerian budget. 1 is exchange rate, 2 is volume of production, and 3 is the price of crude. That is the volume of production of crude and the price of crude. When the budget was prepared, the price of crude was about $50 per barrel.
Yes.
The budget assumptions were based on these 4 basic assumptions. 1, crude price was going to average about $45 per barrel. Mm-hmm. Crude production was going to be 2.3 million barrels per day. Exchange rate was going to be at 3.05 to $1. Inflation rate was going to come down to 12.4%. And those were the basic assumptions, and the economy will grow by 3.5%.
Okay.
Those were the 5 basic assumptions that underpinned the 2018 budget projections.
But not all of them actually stayed true.
Yes.
Apart from the dollar exchange rate, which is, they've pegged it at 50.5.
Yeah, 305.
Yes,
305. This is what the National Assembly has done. The National Assembly has retained, from what the committee of the National Assembly presented to the sessions of the two houses, they retained the production volume at 2.3 million barrels per day. They have retained the exchange rate at 305 naira to $1. They've retained the inflation rate at 12.4. Luckily, inflation rate had dropped to 12.48. So we're obviously going to achieve the 12.4, even less than 12.4. What they did was they adjusted the crude price from $45 per barrel to $50.5 per barrel. And once you do that, once you change any of these parameters, volume of production, exchange rate, or crude price, you're going to see a change in the revenue projections of the government. So with that, they now have a higher revenue projection. And that higher revenue projection is what has led to the increase in the budget estimate from 8.612 trillion to 9.123 trillion. So we now have an increase of about 6% of budget projections.
Okay.
And basically what they have done is, beyond increasing the entire revenue projection because they've increased the price of crude, they are claiming that they are underpinning their increase on the fact that crude price is trading close to $80 per barrel. And given the geopolitical crisis we have in the Middle East, including the U.S. Decision to yank off the Iranian nuclear agreement and the current movement of the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which has heated up the Middle East. Crude price has moved up in tandem with the tension in the Middle East to close to $80 per barrel. So they are leveraging on that increase in crude price to adjust the benchmark price for the budget from $45 per barrel to $50.5 per barrel. So the key thing we are seeing is that there's an increase in revenue projections, which has led to the increase in overall budget size.
Wow. Thank you so much, Johnson, because that's so illuminating. And Fred,
Yes.
With these parameters, maybe it sort of will, play to those that might be thinking that it's little more than a power tussle, they're just being difficult. How do you see it with this kind of explanations?
Yeah, what Johnson has done is to give a very detailed technical explanation of what happened, which he broke down very well, that anybody who listened to him will understand what actually led to the increment. And the fact now remains that it is not a kind of politics, because people have run to town with the idea that one, it is politics, and two, that they have loaded this fund that they require. They call
it's not as if,
no,
it's not as if they haven't done some things in there that would be potentially of benefit to themselves.
Yes, but
they've increased.
I'm trying to remember the very name.
Maybe, could you help us out, Johnson?
I'm trying to remember.
You discreetly left that out, but there's some increment that they did to something that they would now resort to later on.
Yeah, the constituency projects. Yes.
Well, no, apart from that, let me quickly get this one.
There's an increase of 74 billion in statutory transfers.
Statutory transfers.
There you go.
Okay.
Yes, but that doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt.
But sorry, you want to add a but.
No, what I mean.
Yes, I need to. Okay, let me.
Oh, no,
add the but.
Where's the but?
Add the but, because
Okay.
that's 74.
Among the items, the beneficiaries of statutory transfer are not just the National Assembly. You have the judiciary.
Yes.
You have, like I said, the safe accounting units or palaces of government. You have the NDDC. You have the Universal Basic Education. So we now need to see a breakdown of how the 74 billion were distributed. Naturally, part of it would have gone to NDDC because NDDC's revenue is a function of the oil income. So there must have been an increase in NDDC revenue budget. But we now need to see, did any money go to, out of 74 billion go to UBEC? Did any part of that 74 billion go to National Assembly?
Exactly.
And what portion went to the judiciary?
Exactly.
These are the safe accounting units.
So we probably need to probe that 74 billion later on and
definitely.
analyze it and see
definitely.
who got what allocated
out of
or
that.
budgeted.
So definitely. So what I was trying to say is that people will not just easily come out and say, oh, they have loaded the consortium project, they have padded the budget and all that. These are all layman talks. And then I'm happy that those who are listening to this program will be a lot better enlightened. Now, the fact remains.
You're taking it for granted that when it goes back to the president with these kind of understandings,
that
he will buy it?
No, that is where I'm going. That the next issue now remains. Will the presidency take it hook, line, and sinker? The way it has been adjusted, because what it means is that there has been adjustment in what the president has laid before the National Assembly. And then that adjustment is an incremental adjustment. And ordinarily, people will expect that if there was increase in revenue coming to government, wouldn't have increment been saved? That is the natural question. Wouldn't that increment be saved? Because the increment we are having now is that oil price has moved up. Now oil production level has not dropped. So now translating to increased revenue to federal government or to federation account. The question is, wouldn't that increment have been saved and then we'll retain the budget the way it was? Then some people also said that government was trying to make a projection, or rather, National Assembly was trying to include the expected increment in minimum wage, that it was not captured in the original budget projection by the federal government. But we have not seen that. These are all in the realms of conjecture, because the statutory transfers and then the breakdown of that 500 billion has not indicated that a certain amount of money was set aside for labor. To take care of minimum wage. So that means that even when government concludes that arrangement with labor on what minimum wage should be, there now be need for a supplementary budget. So that is why some people say that even the 9.1 trillion will not be enough. But the question is this, the next question will now arise. What is the extent of the impact of this budget on national economic development? apart from some of these funds, because a large chunk of it is going to recurrent expenses, even the increment, a large chunk of it again is going to recurrent expenses. How much of this increment is going to capital project? Because the capital project that inflates the system. There's a capital project that creates...
Is not yet known.
It's not yet known. That creates employment and the rest of them.
When will these compartments be known?
Okay, let me flesh up some of the points of discussion. If you look at the breakdown of what the National Assembly Committee presented to members of the entire houses, there was a 22 billion increase in recurrent expenditure. So if you use that 22 billion increase as a parameter to determine whether there was the expected increase in salary was factored in, I would believe that it wasn't factored in, because 22 billion is too small for wage increase if the government wanted to build in projected wage increase. Then on the other breakdown of the 508 billion, there's a 217 billion that is projected increase in capital expenditure from 2.4 trillion to 2.6 trillion. So the greater chunk of that increment, almost half of it, went into capital expenditure. The other critical portion of that increment was the 199 billion that was earmarked for debt service. Of the 199 billion, 190 billion is going to sinking fund. That is fund that will be set aside for retirement of maturing federal government debts. So in effect, you could actually say that 217 plus 199 would actually, 217 is actually developmental financing, because it's going to go into infrastructure development, assuming the government is able to implement the budget. Then the 199 billion is like savings, because it's money that has been set aside into the sinking fund for retirement of maturing debts. So this is the core breakdown. 217 capital expenditure budget, 199 billion a debt service, of which 190 billion is going to sinking fund. 74 billion statutory transfer, 22 billion goes into recurrent expenditure.
I hope you're wrapping your head around these figures at home there. Mr. George, thank you for calling in. Good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and also to your guest.
Yes.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, there's a question I would like to ask members of the National Assembly. Is it forbidden that Nigeria should save money?
Okay.
The reason that the gentlemen there are analyzing for increasing the budget is that there is crisis somewhere in the Middle East that has jacked up the oil price a little. Is that crisis going to be throughout the year, the budget cycle? Are they prepared to know that that crisis will remain at that level or escalate to make the oil and remain at that price? And Uncle Yori, they have predicated oil production at 2.3 million barrels per day. As of now, we have never produced 2.3 million per day. The maximum I understand we have produced is 2 million. So Mr. Chukwu will bear witness to this as one who monitors that market. If we have not been producing 2.3 million a day as of now, what is the guarantee that it's going to be 2.3 million? Look, they should just tell us the truth. They are looking for money to do elections for 2019.
All right.
How much of the money, Uncle Yori,
yes,
is budgeted to National Assembly? We're already saying that the budget for National Assembly is too much for an agency that does not generate any income. So how much of it has been allocated to them and to their fictitious constituency project? Fred is defending them. I can understand his reason, but I do not believe that they are being sincere. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. As to the question about whether or not they are prophets, even Mr. George knows that, economists base some of these things on assumptions, certain assumptions. But I don't know, would anybody like to speak to that?
No, the issue of assumption. Naturally, this is budget proposal.
It's a proposal.
It's a proposal, and then what budget
based on certain assumptions.
Yeah, it's based on.
But as I was saying,
it's based on certain assumptions.
What has brought about a jacking up of the price of crude? It might be just a flash. It might be temporary.
I personally feel that jack-up is not necessary. I strongly feel so. One,
as a result of the increase in the
yes, I
price
strongly
of oil.
feel so, because in my opener, I said that if there is increment in revenue according to Federation, is there anything wrong with saving such increment?
Which is where Mr. George started from. Is Nigeria forbidden from saving?
We are not forbidden from saving.
Mr. Chukwu, what do you
let me
say
weigh in
on the question?
I want to
Since they must have economists and financial planners there too.
I want to correct some of those things, those comments. One, our crude production today is about 1.8 million barrels. That is crude. Our OPEC limit is 1.8 billion barrels per day. But we have condensate that is not counted as part of the crude. Our condensate production is about 450,000 barrels a day. So if you add the
so it's not 2.3. You said it's 1.8.
It's 1.8. Yes.
Well, our
The
crude is 1.8.
Crude production.
Yes, but we have condensate production that is not added, is not counted as part of your quota under OPEC. So for the federal government computation of crude production, they include core crude and condensate, which is light crude. And that is why they always happen on about 2.2 million, 2.3 million barrels.
Okay.
So in effect, we are really producing 2.3 million barrels of crude and condensate.
Okay.
But crude specifically just 1.801 million barrels that we are producing per day.
Okay.
Then the other issues. Okay. You have a caller.
Please try and remember them, because I'll come right back to you. Joe in Ikole Ekiti wants to join the program. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, Joe, go ahead, please.
I want to know whether the money provided for Tucano aircraft were part of this budget.
If money...
You know, there was a money that Buhari used to buy Tucano aircraft.
Okay.
Is it added to the former budgetary provision?
Okay, thank you for the question. Shortly, all of us will see it. Well, apart from people like Mr. Chukwu, I don't know that everybody is familiar with what every line of it is saying. But could you shed light on his question?
What is he saying? One is
the Tucano aircraft.
The 12 aircraft from America.
Yes, the controversial, Buhari spend.
Okay. What the president did was they were not in the budget. What the president did was he now sent for anticipatory. What his president claimed that what he did granted was anticipatory approval, and then he now sent a request to the National Assembly. And remember that this equipment will be actually delivered around 2022 or so, because they are not off the shelf. They are manufactured based on specifications. But the basic thing is I think for that purpose, what they will need to do, because if you look at the breakdown of the national budget and you look at the amount that went into defense, the highest beneficial capital expenditure budget is works, housing, and power that got 555 billion. And if you look at the cost of those aircraft, it's almost 500 billion. So it couldn't have been in the budget. But I think what the president will need to do is send a supplementary budget to capture that. But obviously it wasn't in the budget. Like I said, the largest component there is for works, housing, and power, which is 555 billion naira.
And defense budget is about 400 something billion.
So, and we're talking of aircraft, what about 490 billion or thereabout.
Okay. That improvement for works, housing, and power, 555 billion. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not enough. But we're talking, this is not Naira. We're talking Naira dollars here.
Yeah,
everything is Naira.
Naira.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but just before we continue, good morning, Reverend Dominic.
Good morning, Yori.
Okay, go on, weigh in on it.
Yeah, good morning, the experts in the house.
Good morning.
Yori, do you know what? For over 19 years now, I'm tired of these numbers. I don't bother my head about it.
Some of those numbers come to 13 digits.
Number two, I'm not an economist, but there's a worrying aspect of our budget. We are passing it in this rainy season now. Maybe June, July, nobody's going to decide. By August, September, November, we now present another budget. To some of us who are laymen, these things are not workable.
The church now is on strike, the hospital workers. I have not seen our budget totally to their demand. No high sensibility, the hospital is, our private health care is in Nigeria. You're number 3. Every year in this budget, go to these ministries. The table they used last year is the same table they're using this year. The computer they used last year is the computer they're using this year. Everything, go to our roads, it looks the same thing every year. And every year we run around, numbers. I will be appreciating numbers when things begin to change. I've lived in Lagos for 25 years. I'm not drinking any pipe-borne water. I use my generator as I'm talking to you now. I build the road, I enter my estate, here. So when this budget begin to make sense to us, who are laymen, then we'll be total in numbers. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic. Fred,
Yes.
going back to the developmental part of it. First of all, let me not forget the 555 billion that's going
For
to
works, power, and housing.
Yes. Well, they have a heck of a lot to do. I mean, power is what it is. People are saying that it's getting better, but that would largely depend on where you happen to be. Many people are complaining. Now, Reverend Dominic is saying that by and large, things are very much the same. Is there an explanation for that perception? It might not be actuality, but that perception.
Part of the reason why that perception persists is the budget proposals do not translate to budget implementation. That is one major aspect of it, because at the end of the day, government will always fall short in implementing budget. 2017 budget from records is less than 40% implemented as we speak. And then we are now proposing a budget of 2018 in May. Yet, it has not been signed. It is not yet an appropriation act. It is still lying around as a proposal, because even after the harmonization between the two floors of National Assembly, it will still go to Mr. President. And then they will possibly want to have a second look at it. And then if there are areas that they don't like, it will be sent back again. And then you begin to continue this back and forth. So at the end of the day, even the promise that the budget will be signed and passed into law and signed this month may not even hold.
Some people were thinking that later today.
Well, that's what that was the hope and thinking is,
Yes.
but that is after the harmonization. It then goes to the presidency for accent. If at the end of the day, it is accented. Now we are looking at election year that is fast coming. And very soon, where will be the time to implement even the capital component of the budget? Because capital component of the budget requires a lot of due process. And where the time to do all this? Because officials of government will soon be neck deep in politics. And then once they're neck deep in politics, everything now holds on. Almost holds on. We must face that reality. Then we now go into 2019. At the end of the day, when will this budget be implemented? That is the critical question. And when it is not implemented, you don't begin to see it trickle down to touch the lives of the people, put food on their table, allow them to plan their lives. Because while we talk about a reasonable budget cycle of January to December, is that by the time you hit the new year, you plan yourself alongside the government plan. If the government, because budget affects both the macroeconomics and microeconomic aspect of our national life. It affects both the fiscal and the economic policies of government. So you now know this is where to go in this economy. This is where to go to help myself, to help my family, and to help my enterprise.
Okay.
So midway, the way the budget is running, it is not helping anybody.
Indeed, and I wonder what all those foreign investors, what they'll feel about this kind of apprehensions that, look, you never can tell when things are going to happen in Nigeria. Maxwell in Tema, Ghana. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yari, and good morning to my elder brothers here.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Okay, sir. My issue is that since I was born, I finished my secondary school, joined the army for so many years, came out, and started my own business. I have never heard or witnessed that Nigeria has passed their budget in the first quarter after the budget has been, proposed. Is it haramic in Nigeria to pass the budget on things that you are going to do in any fiscal year? I am here in Ghana. Look at what they are doing here. I am just comparing Ghana to Nigeria. Ghana passed their budget, I think, the first week of January this year, or second week. Why is it hard for our people to pass our budget as big as we are, the way we tout it?
Maybe
and
that's
another
part of the
thing
answer.
Is, Uncle Yere, the benchmark set for the budget, the price of crude has still, gone up a little. Is it not wise for someone who is under a mono economy to save the excess in order to channel them to the other things that need to be prioritized in Nigeria? Thank you and have a blessed day in Lagos.
Thank you very much for calling in. And Mr. Chukwu, that's the question, really. I'm hearing all sorts of expressions. Mr. Maxwell there asked if it is haramic, and I think it's coming from the Islamic haram.
If it is forbidden.
If it is it forbidden
for us to save?
For us to save.
I mean,
how about that question? Because it might be occurring to that question might well be on the presidency's mind as well. What are the arguments for and against? It seems so logical that why don't we save? It's a wasting asset, etc., etc. The other one, we have present developmental needs now. What are the arguments for and against?
Okay, the pros and cons of saving. Let's start with the pros. If we save today, we'll be building reserve for one, the rainy season, like we say in Nigerian Palace. Two, the fact that, like you mentioned, oil is a wasting asset. The value of oil, or how valuable oil will remain in the economic space, is not certain. In fact, the outlook is that in the medium to long term, oil will cease to be a critical energy source. So on those counts, there's a compelling need to save. On the converse, we have a yawning infrastructural gap that if we build infrastructure quickly, ratchet up infrastructure development quickly, we will build an economy that have the capacity to produce goods and services at competitive prices. Today, we can't produce anything whatsoever at a price level that will compete with something similar products produced in China. So we are looking at how do we build infrastructure, the transport infrastructure, the health infrastructure, the educational infrastructure, and other infrastructure that supports decent living and economic activities. So we need a lot of resources to do that. So you can now see why we have to do a lot of balance. But let's even look at the budget benchmark of $50.5 per barrel. Today, before the crisis, before the US President Donald Trump decided that he would withdraw from the Iranian nuclear arms deal, the oil price was already trading above $60 per barrel. Call it around 65, approaching $70 per barrel. So what happened was, because of that action and the likelihood that the land which produces about 3.4 million barrels a day, that contributes about 4% of the world crude production, might be shut out of crude supply, oil price adjusted by about $10. Then added to the tension in Israel now. So if you discount the increase about $10, you're still going to come to an oil price of about $65 per barrel. So if we end up with a $50.5 benchmark, we have something in the neighborhood of $15 to save, or to $20 to save at the minimum. So if you're saving about $15 to $20 per barrel, the next thing becomes, how do we use it? And I want to take us back to the period
of the Gulf oil windfall.
No, not even Gulf oil windfall. That is far-fetched. Let's go back to 2006, 2007. When Obasanjo left government, we had about $20 billion in excess crude. At which time we awarded contract. Obasanjo, at the time we were living, awarded contract of $8.3 billion for a standard gauge rail, 130 kilometer, 1,300 kilometer running from Lagos to Kano. The Yar'Adua government canceled that contract. The $8.3 billion that was a component of the $20 billion in excess crude was frittered away. We can't point to it. Apart from saving, we need to look at what framework are we going to save. And that is what led to the Jonathan government making sure that the law, the Sovereign Investment Act, was passed into law, which would compel the government to discontinue with excess crude and channel whatever we have in excess revenue, accrued revenue, to the sovereign wealth fund that has 3 classes of funds. You have what we call the Future Generation Fund. The Future Generation Fund is supposed to take care of our children who were born after us, that may be born when Nigeria had no oil, that want to look back at their great-grandfather and say, look, when we had oil, what did you leave behind for us? So that's for them. The investment will be made for their purpose. You had the Infrastructure Fund. The Infrastructure Fund was supposed to allow the Sovereign Wealth Authority to co-invest with other funders in critical infrastructure in the country. And then you have the Stabilization Fund. The Stabilization Fund was supposed to smoothen the revenue of the government when the oil price drops, so that funds could be drawn from that Stabilization Fund and distributed to the 3 tiers of government. But unfortunately, we have failed to implement that structure. Today, if we're having about $20 per barrel excess crude, what are we doing with it? It's going to go to excess crude account that somebody at some point can just decide to say, the governors have put pressure on me, let's take it out and share, and we don't see it. Or we move it to the Sovereign Wealth Authority to manage strategically for the economy. Those are the issues we should be looking at as a country.
And all this while, Tunde in Ikeja has been holding on. I wonder if he's still there. Good morning, Tunde.
Hello, good morning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for holding on. You understand I had to let Mr. Chuku land with that explanation.
I was actually enjoying the analysis and the explanation, so I was not bothered. Yeah. So the point here that I'm trying to make is that I was following Dr. Joe Haber on Twitter. Previously, I've always had this inclination, like most Nigerians, that when you pass the budget, that whatever is passed in the budget is what is going to materialize in reality. So he did an education and a series of tweets and made us to understand that sometimes when you see that a table is being budgeted for over and over again every year, what sometimes usually happens is because money was not released for that item. Just like we have now, like my uncle in the suit is explaining, when the budget does not really, when the money is not available to actualize all that was written in the budget. Like we say, that the budget is a proposal, it doesn't really interpret into spending or reality. So most of these times that Nigerians need to know, like I just found out, that when they say that the budget for a car, and you're still seeing that car in the budget in the next year, one will be wondering, haven't they bought the car? What happens, according to Dr. Joe Haber, is that the car was not released for all, or it has been acquired but has not been paid for. Because sometimes governments and NDAs buy these things from contractors or whatever, and they have not paid for it because it's in the budget.
Okay.
So until the money is being released for that item, this item will still keep repeating itself in the budget.
Okay,
I hope I'm right. I want my uncle to give me clarification.
Well, thank you very much for calling in. Thank you. Appreciate your call. Time is going, and I want to try and understand the implication, the significance of the 555 billion allocation to power, housing, and what is the third one?
Power, works, and housing.
Fashola's triple ministry.
Power, works, and housing.
Power, works, and housing. You commented that for once, sort of, it's higher than our defense budget, which people have sort of taken for granted. The largest slice of the so-called cake will go to them, but this time, no. Do you think they've now sorted out the problem of power, works, and housing?
In all honesty, even that amount is not enough.
Because I could just imagine Minister Fashola, because he has to divide these three.
For what is required in power, in works, and in housing. It's not enough, because we have a lot of, to put down the critical infrastructure we need in this ministry, you need to spend a huge amount of money. And that's what he was trying to explain, that when it comes to power, we need, that is most important infrastructural requirement that will propel this economy, because all the SMEs depend on power to operate. And then even the big industries, they also depend on power. Then the works itself, where are the roads and the rest of the things? And then housing, we have critical housing deficit in Nigeria. Well, when last did you hear of efforts from housing to provide the housing facilities of Nigerians? Because the money is not there to do that. And then that was why we said that even that ministry needs to be unbundled. But then the unbundling on itself will not shrink the financial requirements. So that amount is not even enough.
In fact,
in health, which is giving about $290-something billion naira, is obviously not enough. Today, the health facilities are completely down all over the country, apart from the strike by health workers and the rest of them. So we need also money to go there. But what is important?
Is there a sense in which...
No, what is important?
See, because somebody said that Ghana approved their own budget in the first month of the year. I think it's first 2 weeks or so.
Yes.
Now, Ghana, the size of Ghana and the attendant headaches and problems are going to be, relatively less.
It is not
I would imagine.
It's not a function of size. It's a function of policies of government.
And
because
how
Nigeria
how about how complicated our whole structures are?
If we are complicated, we are many. The same way we will synergize our energies. That's all. Are we bigger than America? Are we bigger than China? Are we bigger than other countries that are large, both in terms of population and land mass? So it's a function of policies
that
of government.
Nigerian in Ghana said that he spent 19 years earning pay and he's never heard that we finished in the first quarter.
In times past, we used to approve our budget latest in January. Our budget is approved. But when it started slipping down to the extent that midway into the year, we don't have a functional budget appropriation.
Like right now.
Like what we have. So
yes.
and it affects economic planning, definitely. It affects economic planning. The economic growth and recovery plan of government has been one long presented.
So I know we can't deal with it here, but we're saying that, look, even though Fashola's ministry, as you called it, as bundled as it is, has this figure, common sense sort of dictates that they're going to have to be very, very frugal.
No, Yuri, what I was even saying is that every ministry, the money budgeted for every ministry is not enough.
Exactly.
Now,
Mazi Okorafo, thank you very much for holding on. Mazi, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson and our guest. Good morning, everybody in the studio. You see, Sayuri?
Good morning.
The budget to me is mere paperwork to the masses. A country like Nigeria, the masses does not benefit from the budget, shows that the dividends of democracy does not reach the masses. Look at our state up to today. Salaries are not paid. Pensioners are still complaining and there's no show for them. Now look at our universities. Last week, during that executive council, they said the government are looking into the tuition fees of our university. We have not seen any report. Now, I want to ask Mr. Johnson. The federal government said they are going to increase the salary for the workers. Now, are we sure that this budget was reflected in the budget?
Oh, that question was touched upon, Mazi.
Salary structure.
Maybe you hadn't joined us.
In a country like ours, chief executive, the secretary that comes into the office today, he will abandon all the cars. I will buy a new car. And the same chief executive, they will go back and to sell those cars back to themselves. A car for maybe around 10 million, they'll be nothing like 20,000, 30,000. That is Nigeria for you. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant day in Lagos.
Indeed, thank you very much. So, how, Mr. Chukwu, are we going to manage? Because the question has been asked whether, and you have also beautifully and so succinctly given us the pros and the cons of the question, are we forbidden from saving in this country? Must we spend all that comes in? And you've given us both the arguments. But this will probably be one of the questions that will be in the minds of the guys in the presidency when they consider the alterations that have been made, no doubt. Because everybody is saying that our problem is infrastructure. Fix infrastructure, we'll be able to help ourselves. So the theory goes. We can see that they've jacked up the power housing and works, but infrastructure has not got the attention you said it could have been a choice had thinking gone in that direction.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, but just to answer Mr. Korafor, only 22 billion increase was included in the current expenditure budget, and that is where personnel costs is. So 22 billion looks too small to accommodate a material increase in public sector wages at the federal level. So I don't think the budget adjustment included any provision for salary increase, unless it was originally built in the first one, which was not the case. On the issues about the savings, how we're going to go about with savings or whether...
And the state of our infrastructure.
Our infrastructure. For me, if I'm to vote, if I were in government, I will vote for quick budget capital expenditure expansion, which will mean that I will save because you have about $70, $75 per barrel now. At $50 benchmark, you have $25 savings. If you are saving $25 on an average production of about 2.3 million barrels, that is quite a lot of money. So you'll be saving something like about $25 million on a daily basis. But so that aside, the key challenge we have is that the budget, capital component of the budget is not being implemented. And I've heard a lot of the comments coming back and forth, referring to the fact that we keep seeing the same items in the budget year in, year out.
Yes.
Because eventually those budget items are not implemented and they're now brought back in the budget the next year. If we implemented the budget, we would have seen some reasonable level of economic progress. We would have seen reasonable level of infrastructure build. For instance, if we have a budget and say, look, we're going to spend 50 billion naira on Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, and that 50 billion will cover Lagos to Shagamu, for instance. And by the end of the year, you have Lagos to Shagamu built. So you know that has been completed. Yes. But if it is not built, you're not going to see it again in the budget, another 50 billion. Simply the budget
Mr. Kerele in Jos, good morning.
Exactly. Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
Okay, I respect all of you in the studio over there. It's great to get across to you again today. Yes, we have a lot of problems in this country. The problem we're having is that we don't take our priorities.
We don't have a problem. We're just discussing this budget. It's the budget we're discussing.
So if you have anything about the budget, we are talking about the budget, and then why I'm saying we are having a problem is that when we are budgeting money and we are adding to what we are supposed to do, and hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's right. When we are saying we are increasing the budget, the way they are increasing it, what stops us from paying our debt that we are external debt we are owing? What stops us from paying it and stop what we call it paying all those servicing the debt all the time? If we have so much money like that, let us pay and then be realistic with ourselves so that we don't owe.
How about the savings idea, Mr. Kerele?
We go and leave the budget, what do you call it, all this debt for the children.
Mr. Kerele,
where are they going to pay?
Mr. Kerele, how about the savings idea?
This one is just a temporary increment in what do you call it, in the oil district. So that is it's not wise for us to continue to spend like that.
All right then. Thank you very much. It's not wise for us to continue to spend like that. I don't know if there's a modicum of a germ of an idea of savings, but he said, look, pay off our, there's so many charges, I don't know.
In 2005, 2006, we paid off our debts. We used over $12 billion
to give ourselves a clean sheet.
Nigeria's external debt and brought our debt to level 0. But today, our debt has climbed up.
Because I wanted to ask, what good did it do us? Has it helped us?
It did us no good at all. It does no good.
Because they have wall-offed the money.
By my own expectation, it did us no good. Because even in the first instance, the volume of debt was not clearly ascertained.
Our creditors might have respected us a bit.
They would have respected us, but at the end of...
Creditors like it when people pay, right, Mr. Chukwu?
Yes, it went into their pocket.
A couple of things you have to recognize. At that point, Nigeria was defaulting on the payment of the debt. It was a huge debt burden. We did not just pay 12 billion. We got a debt forbearance at 18 billion. We're in about 30 billion.
Yes.
At that
President Obasanjo, he boasted about that fact, about what he had got.
We got
debt forbearance. So we not just the cash outflow of $12 billion, but we debt forbearance. So in effect, you used 12 billion to relieve yourself a burden of 30 billion.
30 million. That was
if we did not pay,
too good a bargain to miss.
If we didn't pay, we would have continued to service that debt, and that window of forbearance was time bound.
Okay.
So it
was a strategically correct decision. Yes. I think most people would agree.
The problem we had then was that Central Bank, Ministry of Finance, Debt Office, none of them knew exactly how much our debt was.
Does anybody know how much exactly we're making? Does anybody know how much exactly we're making from our crude?
How much our debt was.
So, Mr. Chukwu, that is one of the deepest secrets in this country. Who knows? Does anybody know exactly how much Nigeria is indeed making from its crude? And why is it kept such a cloak and dagger secret?
Well, it shouldn't be secret. I believe CBN has all the figures, and NNPC has the figures as well. But you have to look at the complexities of the fiscal framework that govern our crude export. Where that's to call deep offshore. Production in the deep offshore, Nigeria gets minimal income from it. Because under the production sharing arrangement, where the oil majors that are exploring in the deep offshore, the arrangement is such that they claim virtually all the revenue. Then for shallow offshore, the government revenue is quite huge. Then for offshore drilling, that is land, drilling on the land, that is where government makes a lot of money. But unfortunately for us, when the crisis of Nigeria heightened, production was shut down in the onshore and shallow offshore.
Of Niger Delta.
Of Niger Delta. And most of the production was now going on in the deep offshore, where the fiscal framework was that the government invested little and was getting little. So you need to look at the entire oil blocks. Where are they located? How many acreage onshore or offshore, or whether it's deep offshore, and how you can now compute based on the governing framework how much the government is getting from each.
You have to factor in the huge leakages
and
the huge
maybe
oil theft.
Maybe that's why
the huge leakages
that's why we don't know how much.
The huge oil theft
because
going
today
on,
is quite going on. It's quite illuminating what Mr. Chukwu is doing this morning, explaining all these esoteric areas to us. Mr. Abubakar in Kaduna, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Sir, my contribution is I thought the president sent the budget about 6 months ago, sir.
Yes.
So I was thinking if the delay is from the Senate, sir.
Yes, the president submitted it 6 months ago. So, what was his question?
He said whether the delay is coming from the Senate.
Whether it came?
From the Senate.
Oh, okay. The delay came from the National Assembly, right? They were working on it, as we say. And part of the work that they have done has been what they have now laid before the House, and that the president will have to consider.
Part of the delay also came from the presidency.
Thank you. You know, when we say the National Assembly delayed the budget, it's very simplistic.
Yes.
There's a process of iteration between the National Assembly and the presidency or the executive in the course of budget review and approval, one of which requires the agencies, ministry agencies and departments, the MDAs, and the ministers that head those ministries to come and defend the budget, to put some flesh to the figures that they have submitted to the National Assembly. So in some instances, you realize that the ministries are not coming up with a breakdown of their budget, or the heads of those ministries or the agencies are not coming on time to defend their budget. So, and the National Assembly position is that we can't move forward until you justify the figures you have there. So,
but we would have thought that that would take a priority. This part that you're saying that even the executive has its own blame in this delay.
Yes, of course.
Why would anything be as important, never mind more important, than going to defend your budget in the National Assembly?
Yeah, which is why I said that it's we need to hold both arms of government responsible. But the key thing is that we need to review even our process of budget development, which starts from the generation of budget inputs. In democratic environments, the members, key stakeholders in the political party in governance, or in government, will be involved in generating the input for the budget. And that's why you talk of people who are influence peddlers in political systems. A party chairman of the ruling party will want to have an input in what goes into the budget, particularly as it relates to where he comes from. And that is why in America, you have a senator that will say, I've been there for 30 years, I attracted so much of federal presence to my senatorial zone or to my state. So it is not out of place in political democracy for senators, House of Rep members, people who have influence in the ruling party to push for or to lobby to have projects that are relevant to their constituency, including the budget. But the key thing that should have been done at the point of budget development, and not when the budget goes to the National Assembly. So if any House of Rep member or senator is interested, or a political leader is interested in having an input, it should be collated, sent to the relevant ministry. The relevant ministers will engage them and look at what is relevant to the overall economic plan of that ministry.
Which would probably speed up the process tremendously.
Yes. So when you have those things imputed, and then it goes to the National Assembly, it will just be a matter of review and approval. But what is happening at when it goes to the National Assembly, the National Assembly members now want to impute their own projects into an already developed plan. And that leads to that issue of, okay, the minister is not coming forward, or the minister is not subscribed to our suggestion, and all those things keep going back and forth. And we have this kind of
Mohammed in Kaduna, I'm coming straight to you. Good morning, Mohammed in Kaduna.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Mohammed, calling from Kaduna. Yeah, the point I want to make here is the issue of budget process, and the first is you have the MTEF, that's the midterm expenditure framework. So the National Assembly, the timetable, they need to set their timetable. While the ministers are having problem here is, a minister will be called in the House of Representatives today. Tomorrow, the Senate will call them. So if they can harmonize their timetable so that if a minister is coming today, he will present the same budget with the Senate, either the reps. That will help the process. And the MTEF should be passed in the best time. This will advise the executive arm. By now, they'll start preparing the MTEF. So that will help the process a lot, so that we can achieve the budget process. The way it happened in Kaduna State, the governor signed budgets normally 1st of January. So we urge the National Assembly and the executive please to key into that process. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed, for calling in. Fred.
Yes, bringing in MTF and the rest, you recall that in the past we used to have development plans, long-term, medium-term, and short-term. Most often, short-term development plans are akin to the yearly budgets. And then you have the medium-term development plans, which now translates to the medium-term expenditure framework. And then the long-term development plans have more or less fizzled out. But then I will advocate that we go back to such plans because they give overall long-term plans and projections of government. And if that happens, for instance, there's no reason why something like a rail project will be coming into our budget on a yearly basis. There's no basis for that because these are medium-term projects. These are medium-term projects. They could, if a certain amount of money is set out for that, you can only finance it on a yearly basis. But the planning and implementation should not be trapped into the budget, captured into the budget on a yearly basis. Okay. And then things like there are some major road projects and some bridges and the rest of them that cost a large chunk of money, and then they span over time. Take, for instance, this Trans-West African Highway running from Lagos and across. And then if you are doing rail project from Lagos to Kano, obviously 1,300 kilometer project on rail obviously has to be captured. Now government is talking about running from Rivers to Borno, now crisscrossing the southeast and the rest. These are projects that should be in the medium-term expenditure framework. And then it should, when that is properly captured, our budget should not be every year we sit down, talk about budget, and then the time we are to talk about implementation, we spend a large chunk of that time discussing and training banters on where is it going to spend, and the rest of them.
You know, when you
so we need to restructure our budget framework. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We need to do that.
When you experts speak like this, it's so logical. This is the way it should be. Some projects would just be astride of 3, 4, 5 administrations.
Yes.
But we have this penchant locally. Johnson was telling us about, discontinuing the rail project by the succeeding government, wasting the investment that had gone in there before. The way we do our own politics
and not implementing the Sovereign Wealth Act.
So everybody comes and wants to begin again. Mr. Omo in Surulere, thank you for holding on. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for calling in.
All right. I just came to Lagos and I've been having some problem with the Minister of Transport and Power. and concerning the recklessness of the drivers and the road condition in Lagos. And my biggest problem was he was talking about recklessness cause more accidents than speeding. You know, the problem I have with what he said there was the bridge from the Ikorodu Road to Apapa. Those bridges have a certain capacity they can handle. But when you look at it, they turn them to a parking lot. And the day that bridge is going to give up, it will be the recklessness of the federal government, which is the minister, not making sure that those bridges are not turned to car lots. You know, if they take those trailers away from the bridges and let them park on the ground all the way to Apapa or solve the problem in Apapa, then when the bridge capacity is overweight and it gives up, it's going to cause a major disaster, you know, Ikorodu, where people are always under the bridge and all that.
Okay, Mr. Omo, thank you very, very much for this call and, you know, putting the alert out. But we were talking about the budget, but it's also an important subject, and you sort of slip this in. Thank you very much. It would have its implications, God forbid bad thing.
Of
what
course,
you suggested.
it will have implications on the budget.
Implications on the budget. So there's a way we can squeeze it in like that. So this whole question about we are not British, we are not American, we're not Japanese, we are Nigerian, and we have defined ourselves as it pleases us. To be able to come after the last administration and start from ground zero. Because this whole ideological, nationalistic framework of there's something that we're doing that we know it's not political, you know, a railway for goodness sake. Yeah. Everybody will enjoy it. A road, everybody will enjoy it, but for some reason, we do what we do. You know, I've run out of time, but I just want to thank you guys. Thank you, gentlemen, for illuminating this whole matter. It's not just rascality and all of that. There's so many different aspects to it, which you gentlemen have brought out to us. I think it gives us a further understanding. And in the ensuing weeks, when the ministers begin to comment, we'll know a lot more. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson Chukwu and Mr. Fred Oke Nzeako. So
many thanks.
That's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. It'll be Jones Usen in the seat here. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.